It's Wednesday, it's the NFL Presidential Address. I'm Lawrence Presman, and this cutie patootie is Vegas. That's the name of my dog. Great show today. Ralph Michaels and myself, we take apart every game on the board. And while I'm excited, I had a good show last week, and I just love having Ralph doing this with me. There's nobody more knowledgeable in any sport other than probably cricket, rugby, and hockey than Ralph Michaels, and let's bring him in. Ralph, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, Prez. Looking forward to another great show.
Meet my dog, Vegas.
Hey, Vegas.
Yeah, she's like 14 years old, a little sheepoo.
You're approaching that 1 minute of non-football talk that I allow you at the beginning of the show, just giving you a 15-second warning.
Oh, there's nobody I like doing these shows more than you. You keep me intact. Ralph, let's get straight to some trends that are happening because they're so interesting. Trends that are happening already as we have gone through 4 weeks of NFL. And what I really want to know is why, and are these things going to continue? So let's just race through a few trends, and then we're going to get straight into the primetime games. Ralph, ATS, away teams are 40, 22, and 1. That's 64.5%. Home teams, 22, 40, and 1. But even more interesting than that is away underdogs. And away underdogs are a very regular occurrence, obviously, as they're the road team. These away underdogs are 28, 13, and 1. 68% on the year. Home favorites are 32% on the year. And really my question to you, Ralph, is do you think they will continue?
Not at that pace. No, we're gonna get a return to normalcy. We just have some very bad teams. Miami's been at home multiple games. Arizona's been at home multiple games. So, again, road dogs have been a positive betting tool in the NFL in the past, just never to this percentage. Because of the start, the season's going to end up higher than it has in the past. But I think we are going to get much closer to the 50% line by the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, and that's why I wanted to start the show this way, because guys watching the show and guys who are betting out there, please understand that I'm having a terrible NFL season so far. That's going to be corrected, and I will end up going on a huge run. Other people have had an incredible start to the season, and that's going to get corrected, and they're going to go into a slump. And ultimately, we will all end up the way we normally end up every single year, and it's exactly the same in the NFL. Don't get fooled by these trends. ESPN has a big article up about this exact topic right now. And the bottom line is you're probably better off betting against those trends moving forward for the next little while, because everything has a correction back to the norm. And that's really what I wanted to mention to everybody, because, home favorites are not going to go 31.7% from now till the end of the season. Ralph?
Yeah, and we're going to talk some trends now that I have. I will say this. You're never going to base a play on a trend or a system. It's just part of the reasons you play a game, part of the reasons you don't play a game. But with that said, the systems that I give you, I think are most important in the NFL compared to other sports, because from top to bottom, we only maybe have a 17-point difference, more than that this year because of, New England and Miami. But in a traditional year, when you're looking at systems, you're looking at situations that every team has to go through. And when you have a historic trend of 10 years, that's a long enough period of time where these situations occurred. The teams have won this percentage of games. Will that percentage continue? More than likely, it'll continue to a degree of where that percentage is. So again, people think I handicap with these trends and systems. they're not a big part of my handicapping. They're interesting tools. It gives you a great gauge of where teams are and how you think they're going to react. But again, never base a play, even if this system or trend wows you and it's got a great record. I'm also cherry picking the best record. I have a trend that's 27-8-1. Well, you could be sure that if I went back a few more, there's going to be some losses there because I'm cherry picking the best record out of those trends to make them look good. So people call and say, well, why don't you go back one more year? Well, I'm just giving you information that's relevant. What you do with the information is your own business.
Yeah, Ralph, you said you have some trends for us. Let's go through them.
Well, let's talk about some early season buys. A couple teams off a bye in week 4, very early. Teams off a bye that scored 14 points or less before their bye. So you have a bad team going into the bye that struggled. They're 27-8-1, 77%. Hold your nose. That's the New York Jets plus the points. Now, if we looked at how a team performed poorly before the bye, what happens if a team was good before the bye? Teams that were 3-0 and have a week 4 bye since 1998, so we are now talking 20 plus years, have gone 12-23 against the spread, 34%. That's the San Francisco 49ers. So a good team with momentum, that momentum gets slowed down in the bye when they come out of it. Early season buys, week 5 or more, when you have a home favorite, this again also applies to San Fran and the Browns, have gone 14-26 over-under, 65% to the under. Does it make sense? Well, yeah, your offense was clicking. It's now slowed down. You have time to prep for the opponent's opposition. So again, early season buys, week 5 or early, when a team is a home favorite, they're 14-26 over under. And playoff revenge. How often do we hear playoff revenge? And it's the biggest thing, and it's the reason people use games. We're going to talk about the Colts coming up, but teams that have playoff revenge like the Colts do, and they're an away dog since 2012, have gone 5-23 straight up, 7-21 against the spread, only 25%. So again, just because a team has revenge doesn't mean they can go out and beat a better team that's at home waiting for them, while that home team like Kansas City also isn't going to look past them because they know they were a playoff team last year.
He's Ralph Michaels. I'm the Prez. You're watching the NFL Presidential Address. It's taped every Wednesday. It's up on Wager Talk TV, our YouTube channel. And we're going to get straight into the primetime preview, my brother. LA Rams. Opening line was for about a split second, -2 to the Rams. There's a 2 on the board for Seattle at Pinnacle. Most of the lines is -1.5 for Seattle with an over and under of 49. Ralph, I'm going to give you my take real quick on this game. I like the under in this game, 49. We saw the Rams go over last week against Tampa Bay. That was more Tampa Bay going over. They went over the number by themselves. The Rams and Cleveland the Rams-Cleveland game is probably more indicative of where these scores are going to end. This is not the same Rams team as last year. If you watch, Jared Goff is out of sync. They're not throwing the long ball. Last year, Robert Woods caught 40, 50-yard touchdown passes almost every game. I know because I had him in my fantasy team. We're just not seeing them do that. Something is wrong with Gurley. The Rams offense still looks good, but it's a slower offense. It's an offense more in keeping with what New England is trying to do. It's 5, 10, 15-yard passes instead of these long stretch the field passes that were happening last year. So the Rams are playing a bit of ball control. Conversely, their defense is outstanding. I grant you they looked terrible last week, but last week was an aberration. I think Seattle is going to struggle to put up in the 20s against the Rams this week. I like the Rams here. It's a bounce back game off of a loss. And I don't think Seattle is nearly as good a team as the LA Rams. Plus, it's a division rivalry game, and I'm just literally going to take the better team. And I think that's the Rams. So I like the Rams, and I like under the total in this game. You, sir?
I could agree with your underplay. You know, I look at it, and I lean Seattle. And the number that just keeps popping up in my head is the home road split of Jared Goff under center. At home, the last 2 seasons, he has a 25-6 ratio. On the road, he has a 13-12 ratio. He's a pedestrian quarterback on the road. Seattle's rush defense has been decent, holding opponents to 4.2 yards per carry. And, you know, Russell Wilson, Seattle's a very tough place to play at home. Russell Wilson, 14-2 in primetime home games. You know, I don't. Here's another stat that I'm going to throw out to you. I don't know how much it means, but the Rams were in a gut-wrenching game, which they lost, and they have to be disappointed, while Seattle had about as easy of a game as you can play. Teams the week after Arizona are 24-6-2 against the spread. So 24 covers, only 6 ATS losses the week after playing Arizona.
You know, Ralph, listen, I think your trends are unbelievable, but the bottom line is they have to make sense. So let me ask you, why does that one make sense? What is the reason?
Well, you're not, you can call your game plan. You're leading the whole game. You're not playing with pressure. You're playing some backups because you have a great lead, and you feel confident coming off a confident win. Don't know if it makes sense. I can say these are the reasons it makes sense, but, you know, am I going to base a play on that? No. You know, but we also talk about teams that used to play the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Baltimore Ravens coming off a physical game. They had a negative record, so why can't the opposite hold true?
Ralph Michaels, Sunday night is Indianapolis plus 11 against Kansas City with the over and under of 56.5. Kansas City is 3-1 to the over. Indianapolis, Ralph, is 3-1 to the over as well. I think this number is too high, though, and I think these over and under numbers are a bit misleading. When a team is 3-1 to the over or 1-3 to the under, the question is what was that total? Indianapolis has not been in a game where the total was 56. I think the only chance Indianapolis has of keeping this game close is to run the ball, slow this game down to a crawl, keep Kansas City's offense off the field so when they do come on, they are in rhythm, they're out of rhythm. And the other thing is, I think Indianapolis matches up well against Kansas City in the sense that they can run the ball with that incredible offensive line. And Kansas City is probably right behind Green Bay as the worst run defense in football. With all that said, I cannot take Indianapolis in this game. I just think these two teams are clearly in a different class. I can see Kansas City getting out early and turning Indianapolis into a throw offense, which is where everything might go wrong. I'm not going to be betting this game, but if I did, I would likely lean towards an incredible number, Kansas City minus the 11.
Well, you know, the Colts are 3-13 over under as a dog, so they do play a little more conservative when they're a dog. And yeah, I can't agree with you more. I think KC is the worst rush defense. You know, you go to Jacksonville, you allow 5.1 yards per carry. You go to Oakland, and you allow 6.8 yards per carry. 6.3 yards per carry against Baltimore, and then 5.3 yards per carry against Detroit. I don't know if you can go through a schedule and look at any other team that's allowed over 5.1 yards per carry in each of their first 4 games. You know, the Colts are just so banged up, though. They were without their number 1 safety, without their number 1 quarterback, without a defensive lineman last week, without T.Y. Hilton. You know, it's a must to look at the injury report. But one thing I would say with you, Prez, I agree with the under mentality that they're going to try to run Mac. You know, Jacoby Brissett can't make mistakes. If he makes mistakes, the Colts are going to lose. He only has 2 interceptions so far. He will have T.Y. Hilton back, I believe, this week. But thinking through your underplay, I would think that the Colts stay within their game plan the first half. So perhaps your underplay might be a first half under, because then they're keeping the game close within their game plan. Their halftime adjustment, if they're down, would then be to have to throw and open up the offense.
That's such an outstanding point, Ralph. Because no matter what, they're not going to feel pressured to make their comeback until the second half. So yeah, I actually love that. Under in the first half, I'm going to look at that deeply and maybe even release it. That is an outstanding comment. Listeners, really quick, we got a lot of comments last week that I was cutting Ralph off a lot. I actually called Ralph on the phone and I asked him if he felt like I was cutting him off. And he basically said no. Just to give you guys a heads up, we're taping this show on a broadcast system that uses the Skype feed. There is always a slight delay on the sound coming into my headphones. So oftentimes Ralph's mouth doesn't match his words, and when I think he's done, he actually isn't. So Ralph, a humble and sincere apology to you if I did cut you off last show. It was not intended, and I'm going to be more conscious of it this time around.
Listen, Prez, doing a show for the first time, it's like anything else. You have to get the timing down with the person you're talking to, the responses, the back and forth banter. That's what's going to make this show so good moving on. So absolutely no issues on my end. Looking forward to continuing the great show. Let's move on.
So you don't think it's the small talk that makes the show good?
It could be your dog. We'll check the comments later. We'll see if Vegas gets the thumbs ups.
Guys, really quick, Dave Koken is on a 19-8 in college football, 19-8. He's 10-5 in the NFL. That's 29-13 in football to date. He also does hockey and baseball, and you can get the next 30 days of all of his plays for only $225. That's $100 off of the regular price. Head over to wagertalk.com and use the promo code KOKEN225. That's KOKEN225. Ralph, let's talk about the Cleveland-San Francisco game. And this game I find to be a very interesting game. There's going to be a lot of money bet on this game, obviously, as it's a Monday night game. The early initial line for a hair and a split second came out at San Fran at -5. It's now -3.5. There is a 4 still on the board at Bookmaker with a total of 46.5. And I've been speaking to a lot of people this week, all my contacts, and everyone's all over the place in this game. People are making a great argument for San Fran and conversely a really good argument for Cleveland. I think the Cleveland defense is really going to be the factor in this game. San Fran has been running the ball exceptionally well this year. I think they're going to struggle to run the ball on this Cleveland offense, this Cleveland defense. And I think this game is going to be a very close game. I think Cleveland is going to go into this game feeling really good about themselves after a huge victory against Baltimore, but it might be a tough spot for Cleveland, what Marco would call a sandwich game, if you will. I'm not going to be in play on this game, but I do lean towards Cleveland plus the points.
I don't think you can call San Fran a sandwich game because, number one, they're coming off a bye, and number two, this is Monday Night Football.
No, I'm talking about for Cleveland.
Well, they have Seattle on deck, so again, another division opponent. But, again, being from Cleveland, being a Browns fan at heart doesn't mean I'm not going to bet against them. I'm going to throw out a number here just because it's interesting, but then I'm going to give you an opinion going against that angle. San Francisco as a home favorite, Prez, 1-14-2 their last 17 games. They've covered once as a home favorite in 17 attempts. But the only time this year with Jimmy G and the San Francisco team was against the Pittsburgh Steelers team in their last game where they were -3 turnovers and turned the ball over 5 times. I would love to back the Browns. I think the Browns have the better defense. I think the Browns may have the better offense. The reason I can't back them is Cleveland's on a 3rd road game in 5 weeks. They're off a division rival game that they had to win to keep the AFC North alive. You're on your third primetime game in 4 weeks. That's amazing for a team that was 0-16 2 years ago. And then you're getting out coached. Kyle Shanahan over Freddie Kitchens deserves a big edge. Freddie Kitchens made some serious mistakes calling plays against the Rams. This was a person who prior to this year has never been an OC, has never been a head coach. He gets the head coaching job. He did a good job as the interim OC last year, but he also names himself OC. We've seen he's been overmatched making play calls. And again, in this situation, in another primetime game, I just can't back the Browns because of Freddie Kitchens being there. So, again, it's not a lean with San Fran. I just think that the Browns defense will shut him down. I look for a lower scoring game, but no opinion on the side.
He's Ralph Michaels. I'm the Prez. You're watching the NFL Presidential Address, and we're going straight into the early games and probably my favorite game on the board, Ralph. Baltimore heading into Pittsburgh. 3.5 to Baltimore. There are a couple of threes, so there is money coming in on Pittsburgh. The over and under has gone up. It came out at 42.5. It's now 44.5. And well, I'll give you my bottom line here. I really, really liked the play calling from Mike Tomlin last week. What I saw happening was that he allowed Mason Rudolph to control the game. He kept all of his passes directly in front of him and in between the tackles. He stayed in the pocket and he really just dumped the ball. It was 5 yards, 10-yard, 15-yard throws right in the pocket, right in front of him between the tackles. And I think Mason Rudolph looked really good. His numbers were outstanding. And here we have a situation where Baltimore is coming off of 2 losses in a row. They did not look good at all against Cleveland last week. But what is most telling to me, Ralph, and maybe you have a stat on this, is when was the last time a division team went into Pittsburgh, regardless of who the quarterback was, and were a favorite, even with a hook?
I tweeted that out earlier today, Prez. In 10 years, Pittsburgh has been a division home favorite 3 times. They've gone 1-0-2 against the spread. Those 2 pushes, they were getting 3 points against Baltimore. Remember, probably 4 or 5 years ago, there was like 6 or 7 games that fell on a 3 every time when Pittsburgh and Baltimore played. So those were 2 of the pushes. So 3 times in 10 years, Pittsburgh's been a division home dog. So I do have that. I'm going to do something that you should never do. And as handicappers, we tell people learning how to handicap the NFL, don't overreact to the Monday night game and let it change your thought process towards this week. But I have to. This Pittsburgh defense was horrific, allowing 24, 25, and 26 first downs the first 3 weeks. Yet they have, 8 number 1 draft picks starting on the defensive side? What they did to Cincinnati at home, holding them to 175 yards, that allowed them to, as you said, have a great offensive game plan, being able to do what they did. They still only rushed for 66 yards, 2.6 yards per carry. If you look at those numbers after the fact and you think, if I said to you, how many yards did Pittsburgh rush for? It seems like 100 because the play action worked. But with that said, I'll tell you what, Cincinnati had no rush attack, yet they were running a play action. They got sacked on that, 3 times? His back was to the linebackers that were blitzing. Okay, if the run game's not working, you can't run play action. But I think the Ravens are completely overrated. You look at who they played. They played Arizona and Miami week 1. Remember, beginning of the season, Pittsburgh, Cleveland were 1-2 in the division. The Ravens were number 3 as far as win total. The Ravens were number 3 as far as odds to win the division. So much was made because of the competition they played weeks 1 and 2. They're not the better team here. Lamar Jackson coming back to earth. Pittsburgh has seen Lamar Jackson. They have plenty of tape on him. And I think the defense finally showed up. So had you asked me prior to Monday, I would have been on Baltimore. You asked me after the Monday night game that Pittsburgh is finally better. I would back the Steelers here.
Yeah, I like Pittsburgh as well, and I also like the over in this game, Ralph. I think we're going to get some scoring. It's a nice low 44. Isn't that amazing that we're calling 44 nice and low? 10 years ago, 34 was nice and low. Speaking of 34, that could be the number in the Chicago-Oakland game. They're playing in Tottenham, I believe. New field, never been played on before in NFL. The total came out at 41. It's 40 and a half. The line came out in the look-ahead line as well at Chicago -7. It's now Chicago -5. We spoke about this game yesterday. Khalil Mack feels like this is going to be his biggest game of his life to date. He clearly has a bone to pick with the Oakland Raiders. I don't know if that is a massive factor here. I mean, do I think he's going to get some sacks? Sure, but as far as turnovers go, that's more fluky than anything else. Oakland looked good last week. They did play an extremely banged up Indianapolis Colts team. You know, I don't know what to do here, Ralph. Sidewise, Chicago laying 4 points, 5 points, that requires them to score. I don't know if they can do that. I mean, obviously they're going to put up some numbers, but I'd be surprised if Chicago, even against Oakland's bad defense, can put up 17 points. This play is clearly an under for me. 40 and a half. I think this game is going to be in the 20s. And I apologize to all my listeners from London that the NFL could send such a stinkfest your way. Ralph?
Well, you know, again, Oakland probably garners a little edge because they were there last year. They went through the process, and, you know, they went right out after Indianapolis. But you're now playing your third straight game away from home. You know, that's a difficult situation. Yeah, you beat up on an Indy team that was missing multiple starters on the defensive side. But I'm not going to overanalyze this. I think there's no drop down from Mitch Trubisky to Chase Daniels. I think we have a historic good defense with the Chicago Bears. I think that Derek Carr benefited from the fast track and being in the dome with perfect conditions. Derek Carr was able to score 31 points because they rushed for 188 yards, 5.9 yards per carry. Well, no one's rushed for even 3.8 yards per carry against the Bears. Oakland can't run. Carr's going to be in trouble. The Bears are probably going to be on my card. I don't like using London games, but this defense is just that good in my mind. My estimation that they are by far the best defense. You know, you can only be ranked number one, but there's times when you're actually better than number one, or you're that far ahead of the next best defense where I think there would be a gap there. He's
Ralph Michaels from WagerTalk.com. I'm the Prez. Arizona. Ralph likes Chicago. I like the under in that game. Arizona on the road playing Cincinnati. Cincinnati is -3, 3.5. You can get either number depending on your out. The total is 47.5, and I don't know how they're going to get to that number total-wise. I like the under in this game, Ralph. I do lean on Arizona. What are your thoughts?
You know, I want no part of Arizona, and I want no part of Cincinnati as a favorite. It's a game that I took off my board. You look at Cincinnati's offense, they're averaging 17 first downs and 14 points. Can they get enough margin to cover as a favorite? No, but again, I don't want any part of Arizona on the road. You know, we saw them cover against Baltimore, but that was in a game that they were down 17-6, and Baltimore is playing prevent defense. So no interest in the game either way.
Guys, Marco D'Angelo is on a 23-7 football run. That is ridiculous. A 23-7 football run. Those are New England Patriots style numbers. You can get the next 7 days of all his plays for only $79. That includes baseball, college football, and NFL. Head over to WagerTalk.com and use the promo code MD for Marco D'Angelo, MD79. Ralph, Jacksonville, Carolina, and I love this game. Do I think it's going to be an exciting offensive fest? No, I think this game is going to go under the total as well. That's my play on it. 41 is the number. But I love the matchup here. I love the fact that you've got two backup quarterbacks that might not end up being backup quarterbacks playing against two really good defense. Carolina, led by Luke, has got a rock-solid defense, and we saw it last week holding Houston down. If Houston can't put up more than 10 points on that Carolina defense, how the hell is Jacksonville going to do it? And conversely, Jacksonville's defense is outstanding. I mean, look, I know the Denver-Jacksonville game went close to 50 points. But if you really watch that game, had Jacksonville have had a larger field to work with, they would have gotten a first down with 3 to go and iced the game, and the game would have gone under the total. I like the under a lot in this game. I think this game is going to be a slow-moving game. I think Christian McCaffrey he's already probably extremely banged up right now. I think both teams are going to struggle to pass the ball. We saw Fournette just go off last week. I think this game is going to be a whole lot of running. Two incredible defenses. I'm playing the under. What are you doing?
Well, you talked about McCaffrey, and we talked about this game yesterday as well, on the bettor's edge. And McCaffrey has 86 carries so far. That's 8 more than anyone else in football. Plus, McCaffrey leads the team with 25 receptions. So he has just played so much. I think we are going to see him wear down, but they're going to use him until they get Cam Newton back because they need that run threat. Leonard Fournette, I agree with you. What a game. 38 carries for Jacksonville last night, 269 yards. And I do want to mention, the difference between Jacksonville's offense, Gardner Minshew coming from the air raid in Washington State under Mike Leach, a lot of quick passes, looks at his first option, second option, third option, fourth option. He had, I think, 6 receivers catch passes for 17 more yards. When you have a young quarterback, that's normally the difference from a young quarterback. He can't make his throws to all his receivers because he runs out of time and panics. He does. He's not a young quarterback the way he plays. So I lean Jacksonville in this game. People talk about, well, you're playing back-to-back road games at Denver and at Carolina, a stat I mentioned yesterday. Well, again, that's another myth in the NFL. Teams that are on their second road game and play Denver in the first have gone 10-8 straight up and against the spread. So that Denver mystique is just a myth. I do lean Jacksonville in the game, and I agree with your under.
Ralph, Minnesota must-win game for this team. I mean, not technically in regards to their win-loss record, but they just started the season off great, going into winning their first 2 and losing in Green Bay the way they did, and then just laying an egg last week. Kirk Cousins is just completely out of sync. But that's what you want. You want to play the New York Giants when you're like this. And although we've seen the New York Giants win 2 in a row, I don't think they can sustain that. They're not a good team. They have a rookie quarterback, a mediocre running game until Barkley is back. They have really no major wide receivers, and their defense is terrible. I actually like Minnesota at -5 here. I think this is a good veteran team that won't be afraid of playing on the road. And I think the New York Giants are going to come down to earth. I think the New York Giants are going to struggle offensively in this game. We got a total of 44.5 up. I like the under again in this game, but I am going to be betting on Minnesota here. What do you like?
I was wrong on the Giants last week. I thought they would struggle, but, hindsight, you look at Washington and how banged up they are. Washington was missing 3 offensive linemen last week. I don't know of a game where you've missed 3 starters in 1 week like that. That's the reason they had 176 yards and 8 first downs. It wasn't the Giants' good defense. It was Washington's horrific offense. And then bringing Haskins in, a quarterback who's clearly not ready after only playing a handful of college football games. I agree with you. You know, the Giants' defensive numbers season year to date look better because of that Washington game, but you take it out and, you know, Tampa Bay's offense, they allowed 500 yards. Dallas's offense, they allowed 500 yards. Yeah, Minnesota's offense doesn't compare to either of those, but Dalvin Cook will be able to run the ball. And like we saw against Oakland when they scored 34 points, like we saw against Atlanta when they scored 28 points, when Cook can run the ball, Kirk Cousins is a quarterback who can run the offense. When he's forced to throw, he gets in trouble. He will be able to run his offense this week against the Giants defense, and I agree with you with the Vikings.
He's Ralph Michaels from WagerTalk.com. College basketball is starting in a month, give or take. That's his sport, people. You already studying?
Oh, yeah, I started. I'll be... probably on Monday, I'll be doing my new coaches report that I'll be putting up at Wager Talk. And, I go through all the new coaches, and people can list the new head coaches, but I go through in my coaches report, I list all the first year and all the second year head coaches. I list where they were previously, so you can think about the style they're going to play at this school. Couple new schools last year, so there's now 353 college basketball teams. I'm excited.
That's insane. Hey, Ralph doesn't allow any small talk, so really quick, everybody, check out The Spy on Netflix. It's absolutely phenomenal. New England going into Washington, another absolute gigantic line for New England, minus 15.5. The over and under is 42.5. And man, I remember the great late Dave Malinsky, and he used to talk a lot about these favorites again, like the spread against the total. And in this game, you have a situation where the spread is less than 1/3 of the total. That's something that you should maybe look into with your stats, because I can't remember what Dave said, but there is a lot of angles based on a spread being 1/3 of the total. Ralph, I'm going to lay off this game flat out. New England is playing to the under, 1-3 to the under so far this year, but it's 42.5 is a super low total. New England could get that themselves against a mediocre Washington defense. I just don't know if they're going to. I don't know if they care right now. I mean, New England's got to be almost bored. I'm not touching this game.
I actually like New England. I'm not sure if it's going to make my card or not, but I like New England and the under. And again, I don't think enough people are talking about this New England defense. They're allowing 14 first downs per game. They're allowing 7 points per game. And the difference is this. Bill Belichick is calling the defense for the first time again in 4 or 5 years. And we saw in that Miami game, he let his starters play to get the shutout. We saw last week against Buffalo, he brought in Jarrett Stidham. What happens? Jarrett Stidham throws a pick six. He brings Tom Brady back in. He wants these shutouts. He wants to blow out these teams. He will not let his backups play poorly. And I think that's a situation that I will look to play on New England this week. They only have the Jets game on deck. Yeah, it's a division road game, but it's not because it's the Jets. I think Washington's offense will get shut down and score no more than a couple field goals if they get a break in field position or break a big play. I like New England, and I like the under.
Speaking of the Jets, Ralph, plus 13.5 going into Philadelphia with a total of 44. Philadelphia is playing 3-1 to the over. Look, I know the New York Jets are struggling to score, but I like the over in this game, Ralph. I think Philadelphia is going to play to the over the rest of the year. I think this team is in rhythm. I think this team is in sync. I think this team is thrilled that Dallas lost to New Orleans last week and showed their stripes and might not be as dominant a team as they are. I think Philadelphia is looking at this division and saying, hey, Minnesota's not that great. Green Bay might be a fraud. Chicago's going to struggle to score. New Orleans has an injury. Dallas is beatable. We could take this entire conference. They know they're going to beat the Jets. It's just a matter of, are they going to beat them by 13.5? And look, I'm not going to lay 13.5 points, but if a gun was held to my head, I like Philadelphia in this game. I think we're just going to see a Philadelphia team get better and better and better as the season progresses. I wouldn't be surprised if we met them at the Super Bowl. I like over the total. That's my play on this game. What do you think?
Well, I will say the Jets are probably getting two of their best three defenders back with C.J. Mosley and Quentin Williams. So that's a boost to the defense. But, here's a Jets number for you. They're coming off the bye, again, which I showed has been a positive. But the Jets offense is averaging 3.4 yards per play. Number one in the NFL is Kansas City at 7.4. The second worst team is Miami. Miami is 4.0 or 0.6 yards per play higher than the Jets. That shows just how bad the Jets have been. When you look at Philly, the offense got in sync, but they still only put up 336 yards. But that Green Bay defense was far better than this Jets defense. And Philly still has secondary concerns, which plays to your over. But to me, I am not interested in Philly coming off an upset win on Thursday night at Green Bay and then having road games against Minnesota, Dallas, and Buffalo on deck in the situation at home where they're only 1-7 as a home favorite. And then with the Jets, you may not have the final word until Sunday if it's Luke Falk or if it's Sam Darnold. They may know who they're going to play. He said he's not going to announce it to game day. Darnold, of course, coming off the mono, the bye obviously helps, but not knowing the quarterback situation, not knowing which quarterback's even taking snaps with the ones, it's going to be a no play for me in this game.
Ralph, just really quickly, want to talk about Puck Time. Puck Time is our hockey show. It's one of my favorite shows to do daily. Just love talking hockey. I mean, I'm literally all about hockey. My entire life is about hockey. Last night, I played a hockey game. We were down 3-2 with 1 minute to go. We pulled the goalie. We tied it up with 44 seconds to go. And we won the game with 26 seconds on the clock. I live, breathe, sleep, and eat hockey. Make sure to check out Puck Time. Today's show will be up mid-afternoon with Alex B. Smith and Andrew McGinnis. 4 games on tap tonight, including one with the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is literally the only team I cheer for in all of sports. Tampa Bay going into New Orleans, Ralph, 47 on the board, 3.5 to the minus for New Orleans. I like the Bucs. I think we saw an incredible game out of New Orleans last week defensively, but they are struggling to move the ball since Teddy Bridgewater has taken over. The game they played 2 weeks ago, Seattle, 4 touchdowns off of turnovers. And they really struggled offensively against Dallas. Tampa Bay's defense looks a lot better than we expected them to look. They're not a top 5 D, but they are at least a middle-of-the-pack defense. And Bruce Arians has got Jameis Winston focused and not making mistakes. I don't know if that's going to continue, but I'm willing to bet this week that it will. I think this guy is a quarterback whisperer. I think Tampa Bay can win this game outright. I like the Bucs plus the 3.5 here.
I think that was a pretty good assessment, Prez. I completely agree with you. When you look at the teams and, early in the year, one of the gauges I use in both college football and the NFL is looking what a team does compared to the average that the team allows. Well, if you add what the Bucs offense has done against the average number that their opponents have allowed, and you look at what their defense has done against the average offenses that they faced, they are number 1 in the NFL as far as yards over average. That's a telling stat for me. Even though they've only had 387 yards. They played the Rams on the road, Carolina on the road, San Francisco. They've played good teams. I agree with Arians. Every team that he has, that quarterback usually leads the league in passing. We saw 3 interceptions for Winston in that first game against San Francisco, including 2 pick sixes. Since that point, he has cleaned up his game. Ronald Jones and Barber give him 2 running backs that can get the job done. Teddy Bridgewater has not had to play from behind. They returned that opening punt return in Seattle, an early punt return in the first quarter. He had the lead. Against Dallas, he had the lead. Didn't have any pressure on him. I think if Tampa Bay gets this lead, I don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger on Tampa Bay, but they're in my mix, and they're certainly in my mix for live betting.
Yes.
If they get out to the lead and Bridgewater has to play from behind, I will jump on the Bucs because I don't think Bridgewater can do that. And again, you look at the Saints, their home field, they've been under 500 their past 20 games as a home favorite. They failed to cover their last 6 as a favorite. The fans are still enamored with the Saints, and the line tends to be a few points higher. And that defense of the Bucs, I'll tell you what, Ndamukong Suh got that touchdown last night. He's playing like a youthful new self. And Shaquille Barrett, 9 sacks already for Tampa Bay. He had 40 sacks at Denver over 4 years. I think that's part of the reason Denver's not getting sacks, and I think that's part of the reason Tampa Bay's defense is playing so well.
Yeah.
Bucs winning this game outright wouldn't surprise me at all. But again, if Tampa Bay gets ahead and there's some pressure on Bridgewater to play from behind, I'll be all over live betting Tampa Bay.
He's Ralph Michaels. I'm the Prez. It's the NFL Presidential Address. Really quick, Jeff from Ostheim Sports is on a 7-0 football run. He's 66% in all sports in the last 90 days. 66% in all sports. All sports in the last 90 days. That's ridiculous. $100 off of his 1-month package. So get 30 days of all his bets for only $225. Head over to wagertalk.com. Use the promo code, as you can see in the scroll at the bottom of the screen, OSKEIM100. That's OSKEIM 100. Atlanta. Houston. Just talk about this freaking game.
I think Houston is by far the better team. I think Atlanta has issues. I think, this Atlanta offense, Matt Ryan has 6 interceptions. He has an 8-6 ratio, I believe. So you're looking at that. You have no rush attack. You have not reached 100 yards rushing as a team in 4 games. You haven't reached 4.8 yards per carry in any game rushing. We know Houston's downfall is Deshaun Watson getting sacked. He's already been sacked 18 times. Well, guess what? Atlanta's not a sack team. They have 1 sack on defense in their past 2 games. So if you have a team that can sack Deshaun Watson, I have no interest in Houston. If you don't have a team, then all of a sudden Carlos Hyde can rush. You have a team that's rushing for 5.1 yards per carry. All of a sudden DeAndre Hopkins in the play action becomes a deep threat that Watson can hit. Kenny Stills and Will Fuller playing well. A Houston defense that has 12 sacks in the last few weeks. And you look at Atlanta's O-line, Matt Ryan got sacked 4 times against Minnesota, got sacked 5 times against Tennessee. So the 2 best D-lines they faced, he's been sacked 4.5 times per game. I like Houston in this matchup.
Yeah, so where I'm going in this game, Ralph, is Houston in the first half. You talk about Atlanta not having anything in their run game, and I think that's largely because they become one-dimensional almost immediately. This team has allowed close to 80 points in their first 4 games in the first half alone. They have played from behind every game. They just do not start off well at all. And I see no reason why this won't continue. I think Houston is coming off of an embarrassing home loss last week. I think we're going to get Houston at their best in the first half of this game. I think this game is going to be close. But I like Houston in the first half here. Buffalo, Tennessee. Yeah, sorry, Ralph, go ahead.
Just to add 1 point to your first half wager there, you look at Atlanta in their 2 road games, they trailed Minnesota at the half 21-0, and then they outscored them in the second half 12-7. And at Indianapolis, they trailed 20-3, and they outscored them 21-7. So a great point on your first half.
Ralph, is that NHL 100 coupon still active?
It is.
Excellent. We'll be giving that out on our Puck Time show. NHL 100 will be the coupon code, and that's $100 off of any of the guys at Sports Memo or Wager Talks NHL season, correct?
Correct.
Buffalo, Tennessee. I think this game's going to be awesome. 6-3 game. That's my prediction. Buffalo has played to the under every single game this year. 0-4 to the under. Tennessee 1-3 to the under. 38.5 on tap. I think this game's going to go under again. But I tell you, Ralph, I speak to a lot of people all week long about NFL football. A lot of smart guys really like Buffalo. I don't. I think Buffalo's a good team, don't get me wrong. And I think they're a potential wild card team, especially given that they get to play the Jets in Miami 4 times. I think Tennessee's really good. What happened to me, and I made a rookie amateur mistake, I said on the NFL Presidential preview show with Kelly at the beginning of the season that Tennessee was going to play to the under all year. And then they go out and put up 44 points in their first game against the Jets, and I pulled back. And I am mad at myself for doing that because the next 3 games went under the total. Then Tennessee came out and laid an egg in the second game when I was on Tennessee, and I pulled back again. Mistake again. I think Tennessee's a really good team, Ralph. I think, yes, sure, they have a crappy quarterback, but they do have wide receivers. They have a beast of a running back. I think they have a top 3 to 5 defense in all of football. I think Buffalo is going to absolutely struggle to put up more than 13 points at the most in this game. I like Tennessee, and I like the under.
You misspoke just on the team. Tennessee scored 43 against Cleveland. But,
yes, it was Cleveland, not the Jets.
I will give you a shame on you, Prez, because you look in that game, they only had
turnovers.
339 yards, turnovers, and the Browns gave them, 18 penalties for almost 200 yards of offense to move the ball. So agree, those are, what at handicappers you have to look past. So it's a mistake we mentioned and we all learn from, and we could, we do it. We're still learning as handicappers. There's no point in time where you stop learning how to handicap or how to improve yourself handicapping. I agree with you with this Tennessee team. I think the Tennessee team just doesn't get love because they don't have any star players. A lot of people can't mention Derrick Henry as a running back. A lot of people don't know A.J. Brown or Corey Davis as wide receivers. Marcus Mariota would be the bottom half on everyone's quarterback list. A defense that's manageable but doesn't have big names and doesn't have a lot of names. But that defense already has 13 sacks. That team at home is coming off their first home game, coming off a previous home loss, which I like. You have maybe the best left tackle in football coming back in Taylor Lewin, who was suspended the first 4 games. That's going to help Derrick Henry run the ball. That's going to help protect Marcus Mariota even better. Then you have Josh Allen in concussion protocol. You don't know what's going to come of that if he takes another big hit. And you also have Buffalo coming off what has to be an extremely disappointing loss. Yeah, you played New England toe-to-toe. You only lost by 6 to Tom Brady. You gave them their best shot. You held Tom Brady to 11 first downs. That's a disappointing loss where you could have put your staple on that division. Bad spot for Buffalo traveling after that emotional home game. And I agree with the Tennessee side here.
I'm with you, Ralph, on that. My friend, it's time for the late games, and then teaser, Moneyline, and Survivor. We're almost done the show. Let's get to it. Denver going into LA, playing the Chargers. I'll actually be in LA for that game, but I won't be at the game because I have a bat mitzvah to go to. LA -6.5, 44.5 on tap. I'm just going to give you the bottom line here, Ralph. I like the Chargers in this spot. I think Denver played their heart out. I think Denver's played their heart out in every game this season. They got unlucky in Green Bay. They got unlucky in Jacksonville. But I think ultimately that's it for Denver. I think the Chargers have had a real tough start to the season. Not their record. They're fine. They're in the hunt. But I think the Chargers are a really good football team. I know Melvin Gordon's not going to be playing in this game, but I think, with Bradley Chubb out now, a huge miss on the edge for Denver. I think the Chargers score, and I think Denver struggles to score. I think this LA Chargers defense does not get the love it deserves. I know it's -6.5, but I'm on the Chargers.
I thought Gordon was going to play this game.
Oh, he is coming back?
Oh, he came back last week. They actually had him eligible in case they needed him because Justin Jackson got hurt. So, he's going to be back, and they need him without Justin Jackson there. I don't know if he'll get as many snaps as he was accustomed to, and he doesn't really need to because Austin Eckler's done a good job. But I agree with Denver. It can be a very trying season. You have Joe Flacco coming in. You hope your defense can keep you in your games. You're even yards. You're 0-4, and on the season, you're exactly even. You've gained as many yards as you've given up, but you've lost all 4 on the scoreboard. The Chargers have the smallest home field edge or the least home field edge of anyone in football playing where they're playing, but you're starting to see them get healthier. They're still missing a couple pieces, but again, on the defensive side of the ball, you're allowing 19 first downs per game, and I love looking at first downs because anyone could break a 99-yard play. But if you're stopping a team from driving the ball consistently like the Chargers defense does, it's a spot where you have an older team like Flacco who can't make big plays with a rush attack that's under 4 yards per carry, and they don't have anyone to really stretch the field. I think the Chargers are in a position here to play well. And you talked about the Chargers now 2-2. You also have to remember that each of the last 5 years, the Chargers either started 0-3 or 1-2. So Phillip Rivers is saying to his guys, listen, we've been 1-2 every year. We know we're going to start 1-2 and we're going to win and we're going to reel off a lot of wins. So that win at Miami is just now the next step to something they've done for each of the last 5 years.
He's Ralph Michaels. I'm the Prez. You're watching the NFL Presidential Address. A Green Bay and Dallas, Ralph, last game on the board. And an incredibly fascinating game, and I'll tell you why. Who are these teams? I don't think we have a true understanding. I don't know if either of these teams are for real. Green Bay got super lucky beating Minnesota. Green Bay looked bad, especially defensively against Philadelphia. And Ralph, back at the beginning of the show, you talked about Kansas City's run defense and which team has let 5.4 yards per attempt running in their last 4 games. No defense has done that. Well, Green Bay, over 7 in their last 3 games. Every team is eating them up on the ground. Philadelphia is a throw-first team, and they were reeling off 30, 40-yard runs in that game. Dallas might have the best run offense in football. Green Bay is going to absolutely struggle to stop Zeke. If you've got Zeke in your fantasy team, you're going to win this week on Zeke alone. With that said, you can never count Aaron Rodgers out. He has an answer for every score. I don't know what to do here, dude. This is a straight pass for me because I don't really know the makeup of either of these teams. We saw Dak play incredible for 3 games in a row, then go to New Orleans and not do a damn thing against a mediocre defense. We saw Green Bay play incredible for 2 games in a row, 2.5. And then they hit the second half against Minnesota and Philadelphia, and they couldn't do a thing. I'm going to lay off this game. What do you like?
It's a game I am excited to watch, but as a handicapper, I have not found enough edges to make me go one way or the next. Obviously, Denver off a Thursday night game where Dallas is off a Sunday night road game gives them extra rest. That hasn't really been an edge looking at the ATS numbers. And I think what we're finding this year in the NFL is Washington is so bad. Miami is so bad. Arizona is so bad that you have to throw out those games when teams play them. And you look at what Dallas has done. Well, they played Washington, had a 219-yard edge, and they played Miami and had a 193-yard edge. So we don't know what we have of Dallas. They had one good game against the Giants, which we know wasn't very good, and one bad game against New Orleans. So I think with the bottom three teams being so historically bad that it's just swaying a lot of numbers early where we don't know what we're looking for. I can say this. I don't think anyone's played a tougher schedule than Green Bay, having gone to Chicago, having played Minnesota, having played Denver, having played Philly. But those last three games were also at home. We have to see now if Aaron Rodgers, who had 491 yards against Philadelphia, was able to move the ball because he was playing from behind and the Eagles allowed him to throw, or in the first year of Matt LaFleur's offense, is Aaron Rodgers finally – the offense is clicking, and Aaron Rodgers is starting to hit Devontae Adams for a little bit more, as well as Valdez Scalding. So, it's a game I'm going to watch. I probably would lean Dallas at home because they have been a good home favorite, and Green Bay has played 3 straight road games. It won't make my card, and to me, by far, the most entertaining game to watch this weekend.
Ralph, let's end the show with the teaser, Moneyline, and Survivor segment, and I'll be really super quick on this. I think this is one of the strongest teasers of the year. Marco and Gianni the Greek talk a lot about teasing up, going through the key numbers, especially if there's a 3.5 on the board, you can get over 7, maybe at times you can get over 10. I'm a tease down kind of a guy. I'm going to take a 3-team 10-point teaser, and I'm going to make this the squarest teaser in history of the world. New England, Philadelphia, and Kansas City. I'm going to take New England down to 5, Philadelphia down to 3, Kansas City down to 1. I do not see how that teaser is not going to cash. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, normally taking a double-digit favorite and teasing them it down, it's not nearly as good a percentage as some of the other spots that you talked about. But as I just said, talking about Dallas, we have historically bad teams this year that the numbers that these teams are going to produce aren't the same numbers as 10-point dogs have done in the past. So, with that said, I'm just going to take a wait-and-see approach.
Moneyline. 2 weeks ago, my last show with Kelly, I called the New York Giants at plus 6.5, plus 280, give or take, against Tampa Bay, and they won. Last week, I called Cleveland at plus 7 as a Moneyline dog, and it won. I'm absolutely rolling in these Moneyline bets. Look, I don't have anything major this week at all. I like Tampa Bay to win on the money line in this game, and that's really about it.
I'm going to add another 3.5-point dog in with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, yes. The Pittsburgh Steelers. I forgot about them. Rewind.
I just took them, so sorry. Well, you'll have to take your team, and I got the Steelers.
Damn you!
But again, Baltimore, who did Baltimore play? Baltimore played Arizona and Miami. I think that's why we're getting the line where it is.
My Survivor pick, I'm running out of good teams already, dude. I'm taking Kansas City over Indianapolis. I don't need any help with that one. I'm the Prez. He's Ralph Michaels. That's the end of the show, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. We'll see you every Wednesday on the NFL Presidential Address. Make sure to check the scroll throughout the show. Rewind it back. We've got some incredible promos for you all. Also, check out Pros vs. Joes, one of the funnest shows you'll ever watch in your life. That's up at wagertalk.com and WagerTalk TV, our YouTube channel, and also Puck Time starts today. I'm literally hanging up on you, Ralph, and taping Puck Time right now. Thanks, brother. You're the best.
Talk to you. Thanks.